What's happening, everybody? Welcome back to the TB Toycast YouTube channel. Today, I'm bringing you something a little bit different. Tales of the Toybox. It's a show I'm very excited to dive into here on the TB Toycast YouTube channel. Don't worry, the unboxing videos are not going to be going anywhere, but this is just something else different that I wanted to add. What this show is going to be is not going to be a lot different than what we do on our main events of the podcast, if you're a podcast listener, which I do appreciate if you do check that out. But what this is going to be is me kind of diving into a single line of figures that means a lot to me personally. Something that I collected as a kid, that I loved as a kid, that I get nostalgic for today. And we're starting that off with the Street Fighter G.I. Joes. Street Fighter 2 was one of the greatest arcade games of all time. I've told stories on different podcasts. When I was a kid, I would get on this arcade machine at a local pizza place I went to, and that pizza place had 3 or 4 arcade games, nothing crazy, but one of them was Street Fighter 2, and I just thought it was the coolest game ever, and just played it nonstop. Absolutely loved it. And so I remember going to Walmart with my mom, and wanting to check out the toys. Maybe I had $4 or $5. I could maybe buy one figure. And there I saw him, the Street Fighter G.I. Joes. I was blown away. And wasn't a big G.I. Joe collector. I had cousins who had several G.I. Joes, but they weren't really... I didn't know the characters. I had some generic G.I. Joes. Do you remember the Core? Do you guys remember that line? There was like a Walmart line. They were basically G.I. Joes, but cheaper. I remember they were like $3 for $5. So I would get those a lot because I got more for my money. But I didn't know the characters, so I wasn't really too concerned with buying the figures. But these I had to get, and I remember seeing the Street Fighter characters, and I was like, holy crap, I have to get these. And I ended up picking up Blanka that night. And, Blanka especially, because he's a big green beast with orange hair. How could you not want this, right? Absolutely just the coolest thing ever. And that kind of started my obsession with the Street Fighter G.I. Joes. And I remember seeing older kids at school, like 5th, 6th grade. This one kid, I remember we were being picked up. He was probably in 6th grade, which I was in like 1st grade, which is a big age difference at that time. And he had this pencil box. And I remember him showing his friend, he had all the Street Fighter figures. And I'm thinking like, man, that is awesome. It was one of those things they really transcended, because you were kind of diving into that generation of people who were gamers more so than toy collectors. And this kind of bridged that gap a little bit. And I think we've seen that more recently. Fortnite did some action figures a few years back, where the gamers kind of dove into those more because it was such a cool thing. And these figures were excellent. They were, of course, a part of the G.I. Joe line, which we saw some re-released G.I. Joe vehicles, play sets, and even 12-inch figures. But what I'm going to do is kind of go over the entire line of the Street Fighter G.I. Joes and how awesome these were. Unfortunately, though, I did not own all of these. I got most of them, and we'll kind of go through that, but I thought these figures were absolutely just so much fun, so I'm looking forward to diving into them. So I mentioned the first figure I got was Blanka, and that was a no-brainer. Love the packaging, love the artwork on these things. Obviously, they kind of reimagined the characters a bit because, of course, Blanka in the game, he was barefoot, kind of had cut-off pants. And here, I remember thinking it was kind of odd because he had like combat boots on and long pants. Well, that's weird. But not realizing that at the time, they're basically reusing G.I. Joe parts, because I didn't understand that aspect. I'm a little kid, right? But upon seeing this, I'm like, oh, that makes sense. These, of course, came out in 1993. So, yeah, I was definitely in 1st grade that year. The back of the card, amazing, because you get, all the 12 main characters. You get the cutout bio card. Man, I miss those. I wish toy companies brought those back. Those were so cool. You actually get a little bit of in-game footage of Blanka, which is definitely fun. The play sets, the vehicles, like I said. And like I said, with the 12 characters, that's not an impossible line to collect all of them, because, that's like, that's doable, 12 figures. And like I said, I thought what was cool about these is they were part of G.I. Joe, but they were also kind of their own thing. And I think if we had more stuff like that, it would be kind of fun. I would love to see I don't know if they could pull it off, but I would love to see if if Hasbro were able to get the Street Fighter characters in the G.I. Joe Classified line. Like, I know Jada Toys is doing Street Fighter, and they're doing an amazing job. I love those figures. But if Hasbro could get them and make them look like this, not like their classic look, oh, chef's kiss. I would be all over those. I know people would be upset, upset like, oh, why don't they make them like how they look in the game? That's the point, dummy. Like, we want them to look like this because that's what we remember as kids. That's what we're nostalgic for. So that'd be so cool. And I remember at Christmas, around that same time, I got 2 Street Fighter figures from my grandmother. She got me Ken Masters and Chun-Li. And of course, Ken Masters, a little bit different than what we remember, because he wore the red gi with the black belt. Of course, he had the blonde hair. This one, he's kind of got like the full sleeve gi, got the ninja wrapped up feet and stuff, but still it's Ken. And you're like, okay, yeah, I can still accept that. Still like an amazing card art, and they kind of reimagined how the character looked. But again, when I got these, I got these like a couple of days before Christmas because we did like a little family get together. And I was like, oh, this is so cool. And then, of course, the Chun-Li character had definitely different articulation. But if you remember, Chun-Li did that like upside down, like bicycle twirling kick. And so to kind of have her feet like that definitely made sense for that. And, of course, includes all of her accessories. And the back of the card, again, you get the cutout bio card, you get the vehicles, you get the play sets, all the 12 characters. And then, of course, some in-game action of Chun-Li, which was definitely fun. Because, I mean, maybe there were G.I. Joe people that weren't familiar with Street Fighter. I find that hard to believe, but it's definitely possible. So those are the first 3 figures that I got, which were definitely fun. And then I remember getting this guy, which, oh man, I thought this one was the coolest thing. And I'll never forget seeing it at the store the very first time, because I don't remember seeing this initially, because I felt like they kind of came in 2 waves, where I saw like the first half and then the second half. But that was Zangief, of course. He's the pro wrestler, so obviously me being a wrestling fan, that was definitely someone I had to get. And of course they kind of made some interesting changes with him. Kind of gave him the fur vest and the teeth necklace, which I believe was from Naugahyde, I think, but it worked for him, right? Again, they did a good job of making these work, so you couldn't complain. Again, the card backs were basically all the same with the exception of the cutout bio card, but you get the in-game action, all the characters, the play sets, the vehicles. And like I said, the artwork on these is just absolutely top-notch, and really, really is fun. And I just remember like being so excited with the Zangief figure. So those are my first 4. They were Blanca, Ken Masters, Chun-Li, and Zangief. So, with these Street Fighter characters, there were so many of them that were just so much fun. And like I said, I didn't end up getting all of these guys, but I did get quite a few of them. Another one that I got was Bison, M. Bison, but I actually got him in his variant colors because I got him with the vehicle, which is always really cool to get a vehicle with an exclusive figure. But I'm going to talk about the regular release, of course, in the classic red that we all remember. He's got his hat on. Absolutely just one of the coolest bad guys, right? And I will say this, I know the Street Fighter movie catches a lot of flack, but Raul Julia played him perfectly. You could not have casted a better M. Bison. He was phenomenal in that role. For as kind of hokey as the rest of that movie was, I thought he was fantastic. But yeah, Bison was such a good character. And of course, you got that amazing artwork on the card. You got of course, the roster on the back, and then the cutout bio card and the video game footage, which is all really, really fun. But yeah, Bison was such a cool character. But I also want to show the vehicle that he was in, and how I kind of had like the player 2 colors, which were like kind of the aqua bluish green, maybe turquoise, I guess would be a better word for it. But that to me was an interesting thing to do, because as much as I wanted the regular colors, it was cool to get a variant, and it was cool to get a vehicle, right? So I really didn't mind it. As cool as it was, I'm like, oh yeah, that's fun. I do dig that. And so I remember getting that. And another vehicle I got Guile with the Sonic Boom tank. And of course the traditional Guile, which I'm going to show right here, had the green camo. Of course, you have the classic haircut and stuff. But the variant was in the brown, which is the one I had. But I definitely like the green better because that was the more traditional Guile. But I'm going to show both versions here. Of course, the back of the card as well. You know, you got the roster, you've got the video game footage and the cutout bio card. But and of course, Guile is kind of like your top baby face in the wrestling terms is what we would call that, the top baby face. So very, very cool stuff. Those were two must-buy characters for everybody that was collecting this line. They were just way, way too cool. And then of course, you know, your top. I'm going to say your top good guy. It's not your top good guy because that's Guile, but Ryu or Ryu. How did you guys pronounce it? I've always pronounced it Ryu. And that's how they pronounced it in the movie, so I just assume I'm right. Years later, I hear people say, no, it's Ryu. But I'm like, he called him Ryu in the movie. So what are you going to do? But of course, Ken's buddy in the movie didn't actually own this figure at the time. I've since bought it, but at the time I didn't have it. Again, slightly different. We still get the headband. We still get the white colors, but slightly different look here. But again, amazing artwork on the cover there. You get the Street Fighter logos, the G.I. Joe logos, the weapons. And then, of course, on the card back, you also have the roster and the video game footage and the bio card, but really, really cool. So Guile, Bison, Ryu, all really, really fun characters. But to me, the heavy hitter, no pun intended, E Honda. Dude, this guy was a must-buy. And what made this one so interesting is it was an entirely new mold because they hadn't done a big character like that. So, you know, E Honda, the sumo wrestler, Edmund Honda, the Japanese sumo wrestler. And what was interesting about Street Fighter 2, not the number 2, Street Fighter also, was it was kind of like a prelude to MMA, right? You have a boxer, you have a pro wrestler, you have a sumo wrestler, you have a martial artist, you have a Muay Thai fighter, you have a cage fighter. All these guys kind of blended together. Who's the toughest of them all? It was kind of like modern day MMA, which is crazy to think. But a Honda was a must-buy, and the first time I saw it, I was like, I have to get that figure. So cool. He's got his kind of his towel over, you know, which I think was probably to just be more appropriate for, for kids, being that he's a sumo wrestler. He didn't want those big butt cheeks flying around and stuff. But he's got the face paint on. Just an absolutely amazing-looking figure. Love the artwork. The card is just incredible. Of course, you got the roster on the back as well, and the game footage, and of course the cutout bio card. Really, really cool stuff. But yeah, these are some more awesome characters in the world of Street Fighter 2. Alright, as we dive into the final 4 figures of the G.I. Joe Street Fighter line, so many cool things to talk about here. And like I said, this line was absolutely groundbreaking for the 90s because you're taking a property like G.I. Joe, which is popular, but it's struggling, right? And you're adding in characters from a video game that is flourishing. And so I can't only imagine people who are just into Street Fighter started buying these, but if you're a G.I. Joe guy, you probably had to be like, holy crap. Maybe not, though. I mean, some of the G.I. Joe collectors are pretty passionate people, so maybe they weren't into it at all. It's hard to say, but to me, this line was incredible. And I'm going to go over the last 4 figures here, and I don't think I had any of these at the time, so I'll dive into them. Of course, we had Vega. Oh my gosh, how cool was Vega? He's got the mask. He's he's from Spain. He's a underground cage fighter. He's got a big claw. And apparently he's a pretty boy cage fighter. He wears the mask to protect his good looks. He's got, of course, kind of got the almost like the pirate style pants with the long blonde hair. Never got Vega, but oh man, what a cool figure. And to get that claw, oh man, I guess it's like shades of Wolverine. Who wouldn't want that? Super cool stuff. And of course, amazing artwork on the card art there. The figure looked incredible. Got the roster on the back, which was awesome, and the video game footage. So if you came into this and didn't really know, you're seeing the actual video game that they were on. Did they look identical? No, but it was close enough, and I think that's what was important about it. And of course, we also got Sagat, the Muay Thai fighter. I always thought he was cool. He kind of had every element of what makes a cool bad guy. He's bald, he's got a big scar on his chest, and he's got an eye patch. What is going on with this guy? I know Jada Toys just showed off their Sagat, and he is gigantic. A little too tall, maybe. Scaling is important. I don't know if it's okay, is he too tall? I'm not sure. What do you guys think? I don't know if you've seen it or not, but I was I don't know about that one. So, Well, you'll have to see. But again, I go back to kind of the MMA elements of this line. What was cool is that, like, you have so many different fighting styles, right? Underground cage fighter, a Muay Thai fighter. The next guy we're going to talk about another fighting style, which is just awesome to me, and I think that's what really makes this so much fun. And so, of course, Sagat there, awesome artwork on the cover. Love the figure, looks incredible. And I felt like his was one of the closest for, like, okay, that's Sagat. Like, it wasn't like well, that's close. Kind of like Blanca having the boots on. Like, this was pretty accurate, I always thought. Of course, you get the, on the back, you get the roster, and then you get the video game footage and the bio card and everything like that. Really, really fun, and just, to me, like, a must-buy. I never saw these last waves up until, I think, maybe once or twice, and they kind of disappeared quickly. It was interesting how popular these became in the 90s. And then, of course, we've got Dalsum. Oh, my gosh. This guy was so hard to beat in the game. He was, like, my least favorite opponent because he could stretch his arms and legs, right? Like, that was insane to me. Like, he just, like, you're like, what is going on here? And I thought they did a pretty good job of kind of, emulating what he looked like based on the parts that they had and stuff. Of course, Dalsum was from India. I don't know if he had a specific fighting style necessarily, but maybe yoga? Yoga's more like exercise, I guess, but he always called it the Yoga Flame. I don't know. Am I way off base there? No idea, but definitely a hard guy to fight against. I remember very specifically, like, hating when he came up on the game when I would play the old arcade games. I'm like, oh, not Dalsum every time. So it always kind of made it difficult. But, like, again, the artwork is fantastic. The back of the card with the roster and the video game footage, the play sets, the bio card, absolutely incredible stuff. And of course, we rounded out with our final character, Balrog. Controversies that apparently he was supposed to be M. Bison, and it was supposed to be like Mike Tyson, and he was the main villain, and then things got mixed up, and they just went with it. But Balrog, a boxer. Another fighting style. I always thought it was awesome that he didn't kick, because boxers don't kick, they punch. Of course, big, jacked up, and I remember one of his things, he'd rip the shirt off and show the muscles. Always a cool character, and I mean, there's something about a boxer, you're like, yeah, this is awesome. So definitely get those MMA vibes. And a game called Killer Instinct that came out a few years later for the Super Nintendo had a guy named TJ Combo, who was also a boxer. I'm like, you can't tell me they didn't base that off Balrog. I mean, I will never buy that they didn't. But it's just, again, such a cool character. Not exact, right? He definitely had a much different look, very heavily based off Big Boa, I believe. But he did have the boxing gloves, and they were removable, and I thought that was fantastic. I was like, oh, man, this is awesome. So Balrog rounds out the Street Fighter G.I. Joe figures. And, of course, we have, the play sets, the vehicles. I'm not going to go over those in depth, but I'll definitely put the pictures up so everybody can see them. But this line was incredible. And I, for one, I would love to see Jada Toys release the characters in this form. I would definitely buy those. I would love to see Hasbro release them for the G.I. Joe Classified line. Is that possible? I don't know, but it would be fun. So what do you guys think? This has been the first episode of Tales of the Toy Box, something I want to do periodically and kind of highlight a line of figures or maybe a wave of figures, depending on what it might be. We're going to stick with the classics, though, the ones that I vividly remember or had huge fondness of when I was a kid. So throw it in the comments below. What would you like to see me dive into next for Tales of the Toy Box? I'm going to try to drop these once a month. Probably maybe once a quarter might be more accurate. We'll see what happens. It'll be kind of probably a weekend thing, like on a Saturday I'll throw one up, like, hey, check it out, boom, bonus episode. But, I think it's going to be fun. There's obviously so many lines, and I'm passionate about the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, Batman, of course, pro wrestling toy lines. Oh my gosh, so many others. G.I. Joe, Transformers, Masters of the Universe. Did I mention Ninja Turtles? Obviously that one, if I didn't. Power Rangers, so many fun lines. So definitely something I would love to dive into even more. So, but of course, make sure to check out the TB Toycast podcast every Thursday, wherever you get your podcast, and check out my unboxing videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And leave comments, reviews, all that good stuff. It definitely helps the channel to give me more followers, and I can hopefully make more videos. But thank you guys for checking out the TB Toycast YouTube channel. This was episode 1 of Tales of the Toy Box, and we will see you in the toy aisle.